Minimalists.
This is from the Relationship with People chapter. It's my favorite chapter in the book. So in the book, we talk about healing the 7 essential relationships in our life. We talk about some virtues. We talk about how to understand other people. And Ryan and I go into depth about appreciating people, respecting people, etc. Some sort of virtues that are in our life. But then there are these other things that we perceive to be virtuous in our society, but we like to argue that they are overrated virtues. These are called the 13 overrated virtues. This is from page 275. Now that we've surveyed the most pertinent qualities of worthwhile relationships, we must also consider the virtues we've been acculturated to believe are noble, but are often overrated. First one is loyalty. Yes, it is important to be loyal to loved ones, but loyalty alone is typically misguided and may even degrade your relationships by creating a smokescreen between rationality and reality. Being loyal is fine, but loyalty at the expense of integrity is detrimental to a relationship. TK, let's talk about loyalty for a second, because quite often in many cultures, we hold it up as like the number one virtue. So much so that we sometimes get blinded by either being loyal or the need for loyalty, unearned loyalty from other people.
And sometimes we manipulate the people in our lives through unfounded appeals to loyalty.
Ooh.
Come on, man. We grew up together.
Yeah, we're family.
We're family.
Yeah.
We have DNA commonalities. We went to school together. How long have I been knowing you? And it's like, whoa. There's nothing about me having known you for 10 years or you having grown up in the same neighborhood as me that in and of itself means that I need to give you whatever you're asking or I need to make whatever sacrifice you're making. It's kind of like when people say things like, yeah, I went to high school with Tom Hanks. Yeah, I went to high school with George Clooney. It's like, okay, that's great that y'all went to the same school, but there's nothing about going to the same school that means that you have the same destiny, the same lifestyle, the same discipline. So to think, yeah, man, that could have been me. Me and George Clooney went to the same school. No, that couldn't have been you.
Right.
Because George Clooney didn't make it as an actor because he grew up in that neighborhood and went to that school. It's because he applied himself to a kind of discipline that other people at that school didn't apply in their lives. So anyway, it's a tool that we can use to manipulate others. And sometimes we might manipulate people this way with the best of intentions. We may not even know that we're doing it. And so I think it's not just a one-way thing. It's not just something that people do to us, but we do it to them as well.
Yeah. I think about, and I'm trying to decide if, I guess it's the private podcast. So this was years ago. They were visiting in Montana with some other family members, but they're on the couch and they're having this conversation. Says something like, oh, I love that we're family because that means I can just talk to you however I want and you have to love me. And I'm like, you guys are insane. Like we use this idea of loyalty to take advantage, to hold people to a different standard, when really you really should use that family to treat someone better, like to go out of your way. Yeah. Because I even said to like, hey, look, man, like I'm telling you, I have friends who treat me better than you do. He's like, yeah, but we're family. I'm like, yeah. So doesn't it make sense that you would use the excuse of family to treat me even better than the way my friends treat me? And like it did click with them. But yeah, it's unfortunate that we use that as leverage. It's almost like the same thing when my dad had his painting and wallpaper business. We would be at someone's home. And there's this weird thing that we could totally dive into a little bit more if you want to. But as Jehovah's Witnesses, when you meet another Jehovah's Witness, like there's this like instant connection, like, oh, you're a Jehovah's Witness. Yeah. So we'd be at someone's house and we would find out like, oh, like I see, some literature like, oh, are you Jehovah's Witness? Yeah, I'm a Jehovah's Witness. Oh yeah, me too. Cool. Oh man, what about hooking me up with a discount since we're both brothers. We're brother and sister, whatever. And my dad used to always say like, no, why don't you pay me more?
Oh, wow.
Because we're both Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, you should probably pay me double.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just funny how like we don't use these connections. We don't use the thing like loyalty for the good. Yeah. We use it to like gain something from someone else when it really should be an excuse to give, not gain.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. There's a good sentiment that I think lies at the heart of a healthy understanding of loyalty. And that is, there's some things in life that are valuable enough to not be subject to convenience, because we're not always in the mood to do the right thing. Sometimes our feelings make us say, I don't feel like showing up in ways that I know my value system demands me to show up. Or like some of the calls that we receive, I don't feel like giving up this thing that's holding me back. I know I need to do it, but I don't feel like it, right? And loyalty is getting at the idea that you need to develop the habit of being faithful to things, even when those things are not easy to do. But loyalty gets misplaced when we ground it in people rather than principles. The thing that you're to be loyal to are your principles and the process of continually upgrading those principles in light of further knowledge, not the fact that we went to high school together.
Right. Yeah. Like the whole example you use of George Clooney, it's like the only connection that person has with George Clooney is the high school. That's it. There's no other connection, and we want to draw other connections. But I just want to like call out here that these 13 things we wrote about, there's no value judgment on these things, in the sense that these 13 virtues aren't bad things to have in your life. The problem, and what we call it, it's problem is when we overrate them. We rely on them too much to be this good person.
Yes.
That's where it gets to be a little bit of a slippery slope. So loyalty is great, to be loyal to yourself. Yeah, to be loyal to your partner. I'm loyal to you, TK, in a lot of ways. But it's not something that I'm like, well, the reason why TK and I have such a great relationship is because no matter what, we're loyal to each other.
Yeah, if you find out that he killed your sister.
Right.
Yeah, but I got to be loyal to him. Right. Well, then, of course, that's taking loyalty too far.
You ever notice that a lot of people who follow loyalty dogmatically are often the most bitter people?
Ooh, expand on that.
I was attracted to that girl, and I laughed at every joke. I listened to her complain when she complained to me. I let her use my truck so that she can move from one apartment to the other. I gave her so much of my time and so much of my energy. And then when she didn't like me back, I got really angry and really bitter and really resentful. You like that other guy who doesn't even treat you well, and I treat you good. As if your attraction to me should be based on loyalty to the fact that I have been good to you, right? When people use loyalty as a negotiating tool in order to obtain someone else's affection or approval, it always leads to bitterness. If you're going to be loyal to someone, only be loyal because that's consistent with your true principles, preferences, and priorities, not because you think they're going to reward you with love for being a nice person, a good person, a humble person, or whatever you think it may be. Like, moral values are not there to make us liked. They're there to make us better.
Yeah. I mean, another way to say that is a very common saying of like, give without the expectation of getting back. And like, you're going to live such a better life when you're giving without that expectation. But yeah, I think anytime that you're expecting to get, you're only doing something because you expect to get something back. Yeah. I think that's where your equation comes in.
What is loyalty grounded in expectation is the express route to misery.
Oh man, tweet that podcast, Sean.
Come on.
Did you enjoy this video? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalists private podcast, available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists today. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.